Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Lucy and I like to build things. So I built this teardrop trailer 7 years ago. And at the time I was building in a tiny garage with a few hand tools. And in the past 7 years, my craftsmanship skills and my tools and stuff have really come a long way. So when I look back at this build, I often think I'm not sure if I was brave or crazy or naive to take on such a project. Now, I'm not sure if this is good news or not, but when I look at this video, it's obvious to me that the teardrop has definitely aged better than I have. In case you missed my original tour, I'll give you a very brief tour of the teardrop again. So the back hatch looks like it's cabinetry on the lower part, but it really isn't. You'll notice that the side is going to pull out for my stove as well as for my sink. My little drawer sink is set up for either hand pump or city water hookups. The telescoping leg holding this door open is just repurposed from an old tripod, and then the little propane holder is actually a small urinal holder from a hospital. I have plenty of storage underneath, and this cooler fits perfectly under the stove area, as well as two upper cabinets. I built my stereo into a Lazy Susan so that I could spin it and use it from the galley or from the inside. And I really like this. You'll notice it doesn't spin quite as freely as it did 7 years ago. And when I spin it back, some of the felt on the side is starting to get a little bit worn. So I'm going to need to do just a little bit of minor repairs there. I love having this outlet here because I actually have a small microwave that can fit right in this space. All right, so let's take a quick look at the inside of the cabin. So I have a queen-size bed in here, even though I built on a 4x8 trailer, and I accomplished this by building up and over the wheel well. So that way I was able to fit an entire queen in here. The inside is Baltic birch 1/8 inch with spars, and then Baltic birch 1/8 inch on the outside as well, with a lot of insulation in between. The front has a big window that cranks out. You'll be able to see that better from the outside. And then I have a skylight, which was a repurposed window that I got from a salvage yard, as well as a 13-speed fantastic fan. I absolutely have loved having the skylight. There you can see that stereo that again spins around, and the speakers to the inside, so I wired it so you could use the speakers as front of the car or rear of the car. And then again, I have plenty of additional storage space in here. My front rock guard has held up really well, and it has Reflectix on the back to help keep some of the hot Arizona, heat out of the inside of the cab, and I've really enjoyed having that. The front window I also found at a salvage yard, and it has been fantastic because the way that it cranks out, you can keep it open even if it's raining, and between that window and the fantastic fan, you get amazing airflow through when you're trying to sleep. Now I had a cheaper switch in here to turn the main power on and off, and it actually sort of started to melt after a couple of years, so that was kind of freaky. So anyway, I upgraded to this better switch, and that has worked out really well. The tongue box has worked out really well. It's just, simple construction that I did poor man's fiberglass on and added a little bit of insulation. Plenty of room for all of my different, hoses and whatnot. Okay, so now that you've had a little tour again, I wanted to show you what I love, what I don't, and what I plan to change. So hopefully you can see here the poor man's fiberglass. The finish is outstanding. It has held up amazingly well over the past 7 years. Now granted, it has been kept in my garage most of its life. However, it has spent probably about 2 years total out in the elements. If you've watched my poor man's fiberglass tutorials on both my cargo trailer as well as the Vespa teardrop, I talk a lot about this, that you do not want to pull the canvas. So this was the first trailer I did, and there is this one spot where I kind of pulled the canvas too much over the edge, didn't get it into that seam well enough, and there is a bit of a bubble. Now it still feels rock solid 7 years later, but I do think that that is a spot that could potentially crack or have an issue at some point. Now these door fronts I bought for $1 a piece at a reclaim store, so they're a win no matter what, and I don't know how old they were to start with, but you can see that we're starting to get a little bit of peeling, and part of this is because the way the door goes up, sometimes it would catch a little bit until I made some adjustments. So now that I have much better skills, I do plan on rebuilding these doors. One issue that I had while camping in Utah is I noticed a little bit of separation. The 1/8 inch Baltic birch started to pull away up here. So those screws with washers I added while I was at the campsite. So I always keep a few basic tools with me. And that increased surface area really helped it to stay. And that was about 4 years ago, I believe. And the repair has held up really well, but obviously it affected, the aesthetic a little bit. Since I built up and over the wheels, I actually ended up with some interesting little storage space underneath the mattress. So I added these little cubbies, and that's where I keep things like fuses and a few tools and stuff that I hope that I never really have to access, but it's nice to have them with just in case I do. The hinge for the back hatch is another area where I wish I would have done it differently. I used the plastic hinge for this, and it's nice because it's continuous and it's really good from a water standpoint, but I definitely should have put aluminum on the top and the bottom of the hinge like I did on the doors. That would have prevented it from doing this little kind of wavy, bubbly thing that it did the first time I had it out in the heat. So definitely lesson learned there. To do it over again, I would probably use a hurricane hinge because that way then the hatch can be removed easier to, make any necessary repairs. When I built this, I didn't have any money and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pull it off, so I didn't want to spend much money. So I started with a $200 Harbor Freight used trailer that got on Craigslist. Now, it has held up well, but to do it over again, I would have started with a much better base and I would have started with a 5x8 trailer so I didn't have to go up and over the wheels. But one very necessary improvement that I made right away to this trailer was to put steel to reinforce the tongue, and that is extremely necessary. This being a fold-up style trailer, that is definitely a weak point. I also upgraded the wheels to a C range tire from the stock B range tires. Another thing I would do differently is how I did the countertop. So I got this countertop for $10. It was rolled on each side. It is fantastic. And I mounted it at a point that I thought would be high enough, that it was a decent level for cooking on the outside and leave enough leg room on the inside. But by the time I got the mattress in there, there is enough leg room, but I kind of like to do somersaults in my sleep. So it would be nice to have a few extra inches. So to do it over again, I would split the countertop so that it was mounted higher on the inside than it was back in the galley. So just as a quick side note, the camper has been sitting outside for the past several months because I've been doing some projects in my garage space. And it's about 100 degrees today, and I went to rub my hand over this, and I noticed that the, part that's kind of the tan color felt hot to the touch, but not uncomfortable, and the parts that were the dark brown were extremely hot. Now, I do not have the most scientific thermometer for this, so I just use my meat thermometer, but at least you can see, even if it's not an accurate reading, the difference in the temperature from the lighter to the darker spot. So just side note, comparison, things to think about when you're building your teardrop. So now I'm going to attempt to smoothly walk around the trailer so you get this nice view of it, which I fail miserably at apparently. Apparently I cannot walk and hold a camera and be smooth. But anyway, you'll see I noticed that I still had the door open, so I'm going to shut the side door. And in the original tour video, I mentioned that I would have just bought the doors. And again, I still would have chosen to buy the doors. They've worked out well. They've been watertight, but you kind of have to give them a little slam to shut. And when you're staying at a campground in the middle of the night, you kind of don't want to be slamming your door. So I would probably just buy them. But like I said, they've been watertight. They've worked out really well, so I can't really complain. If you enjoy my work, please like and subscribe and follow along. I basically kind of do whatever DIY stuff I feel like doing. I'm just starting a van conversion, so that should hopefully be pretty interesting. But if my channel feels like it's a little bit all over the place, that's probably because I'm a little bit all over the place. So anyway, I hope that you build something awesome and have an amazing time doing it.